The knock came just after midnight, sharp and fast, almost angry. I flinched. The wind had been howling for hours, rattling the windows like someone was trying to break in, and the rain hadn't let up since dinner. Thunder cracked so loud, it shook the floor. That's what I thought I'd heard. Thunder. But then it came again. A knock. Louder this time. I froze at my desk, hands still on the keyboard. I'd been cleaning up some code for a client in Boulder, half listening to the storm, trying to ignore the way it kept creeping under my skin. Crestview didn't usually get storms like this. Not in October, not this violent. Another knock. My stomach dropped. I got up slow, not sure what I expected. A neighbor? An emergency? The power flickered just as I reached the door. I cracked it open. No one. Then I looked down. There was a baby carrier on my porch soaked through. Rain was coming down in sheets, and the blue blanket wrapped around the baby did almost nothing. The kid was crying. That high, panicked newborn cry that slices straight through you. I yanked the door open the rest of the way and crouched down, heart pounding. There was a note tucked under the handle. Sloppy handwriting, smeared with rain. Can't do this. He's yours now, Tom. I stood there like an idiot, drenched, just staring at it. Vince, my older brother. I hadn't heard from him in, 8 months? Maybe longer. Last I knew, he was couch surfing in Vegas, chasing half-assed business ideas and crashing his sobriety for the third time. He had a kid? Jesus Christ, I muttered. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I grabbed the carrier and yanked it inside. The baby's face was red, his tiny fist clenched like he knew this was all wrong. I ran for towels and laid him on the couch, trying to remember anything useful from babysitting my cousin 10 years ago. Nothing came. I sat there, dripping wet, staring at the baby, then the note. Then I did something stupid. I called my parents. My mom answered. Her voice was cold and flat. Tom, why are you calling this late? Vince left a baby on my porch. Silence. Then, don't involve us. It's his kid. He says it's mine now. We don't want to be part of this mess, and you better keep this quiet. We have a reputation here. I hung up without another word. I wrapped the baby tighter in the blanket, heart pounding, hands shaking. He stopped crying, just blinked up at me with this dazed, trusting look. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving him out in the storm. I grabbed my phone and typed into Google, how to take care of a newborn. It sounded stupid even as I typed it, but what else was I supposed to do? I'd never changed a diaper in my life. I didn't have a single damn bottle in the house, let alone formula or wipes or those little things babies wear. Onesies? The kid let out another thin cry, weaker now, more tired than panicked. I reached into the carrier for clues. There was a bottle, half empty, no label. A single diaper, soaked. A Ziploc bag with a folded up form inside. Birth certificate request, filled out, but never mailed. Baby's birthday, January 6th. No name listed, just Baby Boy Ramirez. I looked at him. Dark hair, soft skin, tiny clenched fists. The fact that Vince had left no name hit me harder than I expected. Like, even that was too much responsibility. My chest felt tight. I paced once, then grabbed my hoodie and keys. All right, little man, I muttered, scooping him up. We're doing this the hard way. I wrapped him in dry towels and stuck him in an old canvas duffel with a pillow. Yeah, it was janky as hell, but I didn't have a proper carrier. I hauled him to the car and drove 10 minutes through blinding rain to the 24-hour CVS on Lakeview. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my ears. Inside, the place was dead quiet. Fluorescent lights, squeaky floors, one teenage cashier who looked like he wanted to quit on the spot. I grabbed everything I thought a baby might need. Formula, diapers, wipes, bottles, onesies. Those weird gas drops I remembered from commercials. I was standing there in the baby aisle, holding a can of formula and trying not to lose it, when the baby started wailing again. Loud this time. Real loud. The cashier actually flinched when I got to the counter. You, got a baby? He asked. Yeah, I said. Apparently. I paid cash and got the hell out. That week was chaos. I didn't sleep more than 2 hours at a time. The baby, my nephew, I kept reminding myself, cried nonstop, puked on everything I owned, and had a blowout that somehow got on the ceiling. I missed 2 shifts at the call center trying to get him to stop screaming, and on Friday, my boss sent me a one-line email. We need someone more reliable. Consider this notice. I didn't even argue. I had no energy left. 3 nights later, around 2 a.m., I sat on the couch, holding the kid against my chest, his body finally still after an hour of crying. My eyes burned. My back ached. The apartment smelled like sour milk and baby wipes. I can't call you baby boy Ramirez forever, I muttered. His eyes were half closed, breathing soft. He looked peaceful, finally. I thought of that old comic Vince and I used to read as kids, Steel Sentinel. The sidekick's name was Micah, the one who never gave up, even when everything fell apart. Micah, I said quietly. Yeah, that fits. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no savings, no job, no backup plan. But I'd made the decision somewhere in the middle of that first stormy night, and I wasn't going back. Before all this, I'd built my life small on purpose. Part-time work, freelance gigs, no drama, no people, no family. I'd cut the whole mess off after Vince spiraled, and our parents showed me exactly what I meant to them. I thought that was peace. But looking down at Micah, wrapped in my old hoodie, breathing against my chest like he belonged there, I realized peace wasn't the same as purpose. I didn't notice the knock at first. We were on the couch, halfway through Iron Fang Nitrogen 12, Micah's head resting against my shoulder, a bowl of popcorn between us. Was that the door? He asked, eyes still on the page. Probably Greg needing jumper cables again, I said. Pause it. I stood, stretched my legs, and walked to the front of the house. The knock came again, this time clearer. 3 sharp raps. I opened the door, and there he was. Vince, 10 years older, clean-cut, button-down shirt tucked in, hair slicked back like he'd just stepped out of some courtroom drama. Behind him stood our parents. Mom in her usual stiff blazer, Dad with his hands folded like he was at church. Off to the side, a man in a gray suit held a thick envelope. For a second, I couldn't speak. Vince smiled like we were old friends. Hey, Tommy, long time. I didn't say a word. My hand clenched the doorknob hard enough to hurt. I know this is a surprise, he said, voice calm, rehearsed. But I'm in a different place now. Sober, stable, I've got a job, a house, and a lawyer. And I think it's time I stepped up. He nodded toward the hallway behind me. I want my son back. The lawyer stepped forward, opened his folder, and held out a few sheets of paper. Preliminary custody filing. We're requesting voluntary mediation before court. I didn't take them. My parents hadn't said a word. Just stood there with that smug, glassy-eyed calm they always used when they thought they were winning. My mother's lips curled into the kind of smile that made me want to slam the door on her face. I stepped back just enough to pull my phone from my pocket and called Darren. He answered on the second ring. Yo, Darren. I got Vince, my parents, and a damn lawyer on my porch talking about taking Micah. Dead silence. Then, shut the door. I'll be there in 20. I didn't say goodbye. I looked at Vince. You have no idea who that kid is. Not even his favorite cereal. Vince gave me this practiced frown, like he was trying to look regretful. I'm still his father, Tom. No, you're the guy who dumped him in a rainstorm and disappeared for 10 years. He started to speak again, but I didn't care. I slammed the door before the lawyer could open his mouth. Micah peeked around the corner, eyes wide. Who was that? I forced a calm I didn't feel. Just someone from my past. We're fine. He nodded, then hesitated. You're not gonna let anything happen, right? Not a chance, I said. Now, go get the popcorn before Greg eats it. He laughed and ran off. I stood there by the door for a long minute, jaw clenched, heart pounding. They wanted Micah. After everything. Darren showed up the next morning in jeans and a hoodie, coffee in one hand, fire in his eyes. "You ready?" he asked as we stepped into the law office Vince's people had picked. Real polished. Downtown Crest View, floor-to-ceiling windows, overpriced espresso in the waiting room. Their lawyer was one of those guys with a fake smile and perfect teeth who called everyone "my friend" before gutting them on paper. Inside the conference room, Vince sat at the far end of the table, arms folded like he owned the damn place. My parents were on either side of him, dressed like they were heading to some charity gala. My mom gave me this sad little smile like I was the one screwing everything up. Their lawyer stood first. "Thank you both for coming. I know this is sensitive." Darren cut in, voice calm. "Let's skip the performance. What do you want?" Vince leaned forward. "I want my son back." I laughed once, loud enough to turn a few heads. He kept going. "I've been clean for almost 2 years. I have a stable job, a home. I've done the work. And Tom, he never gave me a chance to step up. He made that decision for me." I pulled out the old manila envelope I'd brought and dropped it on the table. The note Vince left on my porch. Printouts of the texts and emails he'd sent me over the years. Random, late-night nonsense. Not one mention of a child. Not one offer to help. The opposing lawyer didn't blink. That doesn't change the fact that Mr. Ramirez raised a child that was not legally his, without consent. Darren leaned forward. "Consent? You mean the night Vince abandoned a newborn during a thunderstorm and disappeared? That kind of consent?" Their lawyer adjusted his tie. "Addiction complicates things, but the law still protects biological parents, especially if the child was raised without formal guardianship. You have no legal adoption, no signed custody, because I didn't know the kid even existed until he was soaking wet on my front porch," I snapped. "Don't lecture me on legal steps when Vince was MIA for a decade." My mother finally spoke. "Tom, you kept Micah from us. You told me to keep it quiet," I shot back. "You wanted it buried because it made you look bad. And now, suddenly, you care?" Vince slammed his hand on the table. "He's my son." I stood, pushing my chair back hard enough to scrape the floor. "No, he's a kid you ditch like trash. You don't get to drop a baby off like a pizza and come back a decade later pretending to be dad." Their lawyer raised a hand. "Tom, if we can't come to an agreement, this will go public. The courts, local press. People will hear how you took a child that wasn't yours, denied his father access." Darren stood now too. "You think public attention's gonna scare us? My client has 10 years of school records, medical bills, babysitters, neighbors, teachers, all of them ready to talk. You want to play dirty? We'll bury you in facts." I stared at Vince. "You want to be a dad now because it's convenient, not because you love him. You didn't ask about his hobbies, his friends, his life. You don't know him." "I can get to know him," Vince said quietly. "You had 10 years. Silence. The lawyer cleared his throat. "We'll be in touch." I grabbed my envelope and turned without another word. Out in the parking lot, Darren lit a cigarette and handed me one, even though I hadn't smoked in years. I didn't light it. "What now?" I asked. "Now," he said, exhaling, "we dig." Darren made the call the same afternoon, standing right next to my kitchen sink with a legal pad under his elbow and coffee on his shirt. "Yeah, Sam, I got something for you." 2 days later, Sam Rudd showed up at my door. Early 50s, square jaw, buzzed hair, denim jacket like he hadn't updated his wardrobe since 1989. He moved like a guy who used to kick down doors for a living, but now charged hourly. He didn't waste time. I pulled court access logs and banking records Vince never expected anyone to touch, Sam said, flipping through a manila folder. "Your brother tried to claim a trust fund from your grandfather's estate 6 weeks ago." I frowned. "I didn't even know there was a trust." Sam tapped the page. 1.8 million. Clause says it's only payable to direct line Ramirez heirs, but only if the heir's parent is actively raising them. I stared at the paperwork. My stomach turned. Sam kept going. "He got denied. Not because he's not the father, because he doesn't have custody. They told him to come back with court papers. My chest burned. So that's what this is. It's not about Micah. Bingo, Sam said. Darren sat forward. What about the parents? Are they in on it? Sam nodded. Emails between them and the estate lawyer go back months. Your mom's even in one thread discussing correcting the custody situation before the trust expires. Of course. Of course they didn't want Micah because they missed him. They wanted him because he unlocked a 7-figure payday. Raised by the Ramirez lineage. That's what the clause said. And in their eyes, I'd cut the bloodline in half the night I chose to stay, and Vince didn't. My teeth ground together until my head hurt. Keep digging, I told Sam. Anything you can find. That Friday, Micah came home from school quiet. Backpack still zipped, sneakers still on, just stood in the doorway holding his art folder. You okay? I asked. He nodded too fast. Micah? He looked up, eyes glassy. Some kid at recess said you're not my real dad. Said my real dad's back and wants me now. I sat down hard. My throat tightened. Come here. He crossed the room and leaned into me before I could even open my arms. 10 years old, but still small in my chest, like that first stormy night. I need to know the truth, he whispered. Is it true? I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't stall. Yeah, I said. Your real dad. His name's Vince. He's my brother. Micah didn't pull away. But he left you with me when you were just a baby. I didn't know he had a kid until that night. He didn't come back. He didn't call. Nothing. Why'd you keep me? I looked him straight in the eye. Because you were mine the second I picked you up off that porch. He left, and I stayed. That's the only part that matters. Micah nodded slowly. So you chose me. Every single day. He didn't say anything else. He just sat there with me on the floor, head against my chest, and held my hand like he didn't plan to let go. 2 days later, Sam showed up on my porch with that same beat-up folder under his arm, but this time, he was smiling. I found Renee, he said. Vince's ex, mother of the kid, far as I can tell. She talked? Oh yeah, and she didn't hold back. We sat at the kitchen table. Sam opened the folder and dropped in a voice recorder. She says Vince knew from day one that he had a kid. She begged him not to leave the baby, but your parents leaned on him. Told him if he wanted any future, money, help, anything, he had to hand the baby off and shut up. I sat back in my chair, fists clenched. And he listened. Yep, took the out. Sam clicked the next tab open. And get this. Renee says the trust was dangled in front of him for years. But now that it's close to expiring, the pressure's back on. That's why he's here now. Not for Micah. For the payout. I didn't speak. I just nodded. Also got Mr. Hall from the elementary school to write a statement. Sam continued. Says you're at every parent-teacher conference, every art show, every field trip sign-up. Kids respectful, loved, well cared for. I blinked fast and looked away. Sam pretended not to notice. And your neighbor Greg, solid gold. He wrote a 3-page letter about you teaching Micah how to ride a bike in the parking lot. Said he's watched you bust your ass for that boy every single day. His words. I cracked a smile for the first time all week. Greg's good people. Then there's the nanny. My smile vanished. You remember Mrs. Tierney? Barely. She worked for my parents when Vince and I were kids. Well, she reached out. Said she saw Vince at your parents' house earlier this year. Heard them talking about the trust. Said Vince was worried you wouldn't give Micah up. And your dad told him, and I quote, you let us handle Tom. Just stick to the story. Darren nearly jumped out of his seat when he heard that. Jesus, I muttered. This was never about family. Sam shook his head. It's about leverage and legacy. They never thought you'd hold the line this long. He pulled one last thing from the folder, a USB drive. You're gonna want to see this. 10 minutes later, Darren had the footage pulled up on his laptop. Security cam, gas station, black SUV pulls up, headlights off. Vince steps out. He walks around to the back, pulls a baby carrier from the trunk, sets it on the sidewalk like it's nothing, and drives off. 10 years ago, right down to the minute I opened my front door. We didn't say anything for a while after that. Then Darren leaned back and said what we were all thinking. This flips everything. For the first time in weeks, the weight in my chest cracked just enough to let me breathe. They came at us with money, pressure, and lies. But I had something better. I had the truth. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Bright lights, creaky benches, one of those ticking clocks that made every second feel heavier. We sat on the right side. Me in a stiff blazer I hadn't worn since Micah's last school presentation. Darren in a suit that somehow looked both wrinkled and expensive. Micah was in a support room down the hall, watching the live stream with a court advocate. He'd hugged me so tight before they walked him out, I thought my ribs cracked. Then Vince walked in. Pressed shirt, trim beard, wedding band, even though I knew damn well he wasn't married. He smiled like he was about to get a promotion, not fight for a kid he left behind like garbage. Our parents followed. Mom wore her church face. Dad nodded at the judge like they were old friends. They took their seats behind Vince, all smug and polished. I didn't look at them. I kept my eyes on the judge. She was sharp, mid-50s, glasses low on her nose, expression like she'd seen every lie before it left your mouth. Good. Let them try her. Vince's lawyer started first, hitting every buzzword. Rehabilitation, paternal rights, desire to reconnect. Claimed Vince had made consistent efforts, but was blocked at every turn. He didn't say by who, but the implication was clear. I stayed quiet. Darren waited until it was our turn and walked up slow, like he had all the time in the world. We have the original note Vince left the night he abandoned Micah, he said, laying it on the bench. We also have 10 years of messages, none mentioning the child. No support offered, no visitation requests, nothing. He placed a second folder down. Medical records, school reports, daycare forms, all signed by my client. He raised this boy alone. Then came the witnesses. Mr. Hall, Micah's teacher, straightened his tie and said, "Tom's the first face I see at every parent meeting. That kid knows who's in his corner." Greg took the stand next and damn near made me cry. I've watched him raise that boy like his own. You can't fake 10 years of midnight fevers, broken bikes, and report cards taped to the fridge. Then Sam brought the hammer. We obtained footage from the night in question, he said. Time-stamped. Vince dropping a baby carrier at Tom's front door, then driving off. No hesitation. No attempt to speak. Just left. You could feel the shift in the room. Then came the kicker. Renee. Calm, direct, pissed. Vince knew about Micah, our son. He left because his parents told him to. Said they'd fix it, clean it up. This wasn't some mistake. It was a plan. The judge leaned forward. And why now, after 10 years? Sam stood again. The trust fund. $1.8 million. Only payable if Micah is under Vince's custody. The motion to claim it was filed 6 weeks before this case. The judge nodded once, like she already knew it. Then she looked at Vince. Mr. Ramirez, what's Micah's favorite food? Vince blinked. Chicken nuggets? No, the judge said flatly. It's mac and cheese. Homemade. With breadcrumbs. She didn't stop. What's his best friend's name? Vince hesitated. Greg, that's the neighbor. What's he allergic to? He's not? Penicillin, the judge snapped. Severe reaction at age 7. You would have known that if you'd been there. Vince looked like he wanted the floor to open and swallow him whole. The judge turned her eyes on me. Mr. Ramirez? Tom, thank you for showing this court what real parenting looks like. Based on the evidence, witness testimony, and complete lack of involvement from the biological father for 10 years, I am granting you full legal custody. I closed my eyes, just for a second. Let it hit. She wasn't done. A restraining order is being issued against Vince Ramirez and William and Joanne Ramirez, effective immediately. Any contact with Micah without written court approval will be considered a violation. Then she set down her pen. One more thing. A fraud investigation into the attempted misuse of the Ramirez Trust Fund will begin this week. This hearing is closed. Bang of the gavel. Case over. Vince's face cracked first. Like the mask he'd glued on that morning finally gave out. My mother didn't move. My father just stood there, stunned, like someone had unplugged him. Darren clapped me on the shoulder, hard. You did it, man. No, we did. I picked Micah up from school that afternoon. He came out of the building like a rocket, backpack bouncing, face full of questions he hadn't asked yet. I crouched beside the car and waited until he was close enough to hear me without anyone else listening. It's done, I said. You're mine. No one can take you away. He didn't say anything, just dropped his bag, wrapped his arms around my neck, and held on like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. We hit the diner on Pine, our spot. 2 burgers, 2 chocolate shakes, fries piled high between us. Micah dipped one in his milkshake like always and said, "So, now what?" "Now," I said, "we live." Back home, he went quiet for a bit. I figured he was tired, but after dinner, he came into my office with a piece of paper in his hand. "Can I show you something?" He handed me a printed form. State header, black ink, everything filled out in his neatest handwriting. Petition to legally change. Name, Micah Thomas Ramirez. My breath caught in my chest. I looked up, eyes stinging, but held it together. "You sure about this?" He nodded. "You earned it, and I want it." I stood, pulled him into a hug, and whispered, "All right, we'll do it together." 3 weeks later, we sat side by side at the county clerk's office. I signed first. Micah signed next. The clerk stamped it with a loud, final thud that felt like the end of a storm we'd been walking through for 10 years. That night, I tucked him into bed, same as always. He leaned back on the pillow, arms behind his head, grinning up at the ceiling. "Thanks for fighting for me, Dad." I ruffled his hair. "Always. That's what real dads do." He fell asleep fast. No nightmares, no questions, just peace. I walked down the hall to my office and opened the last legal folder, still sitting on my desktop. I clicked through the files one more time, not because I needed to, just to remind myself we did it. Then I hit delete. The screen went blank. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. Family isn't something you're handed. It's not a name or a bloodline or a legal form someone forgot to sign. It's something you show up for. Something you build with time and sweat and sacrifice. Something you protect when no one else will.